Welcome to Field of Screens podcast. Today we'll be talking about VHS Halloween. I have just finished watching this movie, and let me tell you, this movie brings a variety of segments. There is some that will disturb you, there is some that will make you laugh, there are some that are quite eerie. It's quite the variety pack, but they all fall into one category, and that is that they are Halloween themed. Now, if you haven't seen this and you're kind of on the fence, wondering whether you should or not, again, there is one segment that is very disturbing. There's a lot of gore throughout this entire movie, so if gore's not really for you, maybe this isn't your cup of tea, I don't know. But there's also a lot of gory segments that are kind of funny, and just kind of interesting. Just because there's a lot of gore throughout the entire movie doesn't necessarily mean it's the scariest movie out there. I would say overall this movie isn't very scary per se, but there is one segment that stands out in my head that would fall into the category of it's pretty disturbing. It's kind of hard to watch. But overall, this movie is a lot of fun. It really is. And if you like movies that bring the Halloween vibes, this is the perfect movie for you. So if you haven't seen it, go ahead and check it out. But I'm about to go into spoiler territory and talk about each and every segment. So if you haven't seen it yet and you want to see it and then come back later, go ahead and do so now. But we are going to get into spoilers. Let's start with the very first segment, the connecting segment, Diet Phasma. Let's just talk about that completely as a whole here. So VHS usually has a connecting segment, and all of them are different. But I feel like this one is very, very different because usually the connecting segment, it kind of starts off slow and it gives you bits and pieces of information that makes you kind of crave for the next time it comes on. Like, oh, I wonder where this is going to lead to. This connecting segment is not like that. This one, there is something that happens every single time this appears. And what it's about, it's a corporation using test subjects to test their new drink, Diet Phantasma. And boy, oh boy, this connecting segment is bonkers. Literally every time, just something bonkers happens. I love the main guy who leads the test subjects to do the drink. Most of the time he's smoking a cigarette. He appears very aggravated every time something wrong happens. I think their goal is to get these test subjects to become possessed, but those possessed test subjects then obey their every command. I think it's kind of just I think their literal meaning is just like corporations, how they don't really care about the health of the consumers, but they just want the consumers to constantly purchase their product, and keep coming back and always think their product is the best. I think there's just like a little bit of hinting at that subject matter, but it doesn't smack you over the head with it. Like, this is a lot of fun. Throughout all of these different segments, there's tentacles coming out of cans, there's people that are vomiting black goo, people becoming possessed. There's one kid who explodes, and each and every time the main guy who's in charge, he's just like, again, clean it up, get the next one in here. It made me laugh. It was funny. I feel like this does run the risk of, if you feel that it's very repetitive, you might get aggravated with it, but I enjoyed it each and every time. I thought it was funny. I thought the main guy was funny, and it was funny each and every time, like a test subject, like just something bonkers would happen, and you'd be like, here we go again. It was, again, a lot of fun. I think my favorite line in this segment is there's one girl who opens up the can, and she goes, oh, it smells awful. And he shoots a look at his assistant, and he goes, I told you to add more fucking pumpkin spice. Like, he's like all ticked off about it. I love that dude. Let's get talking about our first segment. Coochie Coochie Coo. I don't know if that's literally... So when there's a baby and you say that, Coochie Coochie Goo, I always thought it was Gucci Gucci Goo. I don't know if I've been saying that wrong my whole life, or maybe this title is a play off of something else. I don't know. I don't use that line a whole lot throughout my life, so maybe I just have it wrong, or I'm just being really dumb, and I don't want to Google it, so I'm just kind of venting on this podcast about it. But it is our first segment. We have Lacey and Kayla. They're going trick-or-treating one last time. Immediately with this segment, these two girls, they have very good chemistry. It is well acted, but these two characters are very unlikable. They're going trick or treating. The very first house, a guy opens it up and they're like, "Trick or treat, old man." Then they steal candy from a kid. Then there's a bucket that says, "Grab one." And of course, they take the whole bucket. Then they go off and they start like twerking on Halloween not directions, decorations. I found these characters just very unlikable from the get go. And that's how they're supposed to be. So you can kind of root for their death or the fall of them. Eventually, they come across this house that is like radiating at night. No one else is going to this house to trick or treat. And they're like, "Oh, more candy for us." And when they get there, there's no one answering the door. And as they're walking away, the door opens and an arm just sticks out of the house holding a basket of candy. And there's one girl who's very cautious about it. Very smart of her. But of course, her other friends like, "Oh, this is just... We got to go see what it is. This is so exciting." And even when they go into the house, and everything just looks awful inside the house, the friend's still like, "No, it's all a setup. They're trying to scare us. This is fun." There's milk all over the floor. And I will say, throughout most of the segment, they do a great job. So there's this main character, and they kind of hint at her in the beginning of this segment. These kids knock on these girls' car window, and when they roll it down, they're like, "The mommy's gonna get you." And at first I thought they said the mummy, so I was like, "Oh, it's a mummy segment." But it's actually a mommy segment. The little monster that's called Mommy, when you finally meet her, she is very scary looking. They did a great job prepping the design of this creature or ghost or demon, whatever you want to call it. I enjoyed it a lot when it's peeking behind walls. Very creepy and very eerie. And right from the get-go, this was a good intro segment, because you got to have a good intro segment to the VHS movies. If it's not creepy or gripping, people could just kind of drift off in this movie, "Oh, this isn't going to be very good." So, just to have that and have the mommy peeking around the walls and stuff, a very good setup, very good intro. And you meet a bunch of other ghouls and ghosts in this house, and most of them are scary. There's one character that's like a 300-pound man in a diaper, so most of these ghosts, I believe they died in this house and they're trapped in this house. And it's how did this 300-pound dude in a diaper get trapped in this house? I don't understand his origin story, but whatever, let's roll with it. But the big guy in the diaper, he was one ghost that I wouldn't be afraid of, because at first it's really creepy. It's "Oh man, that's kind of gross looking. I wouldn't want to be there." But then, when they make noise, he gets scared and he, waddles away, in his big diaper. And it's dude, I would just be running past that guy. Just looking at how he's running. There's no way he's going to catch you. And if he does, you could probably push him over. He doesn't look very athletic. And that's not me picking on the actor. They probably directed him to run like that. So, yeah, I wouldn't be that afraid of it. But there's some other things. So there's a picture of a girl, and it looks kind of like it's AI generated. And a lot of people are throwing fuss about it, "Oh, the new VHS is using AI." But literally it's one picture in the movie. The scene lasts 2 seconds. I know there's a big argument with AI, and I get it. AI is taking people's jobs. But, that one picture, I really don't think it's that big of a thing to make a fuss about. I don't know. Maybe I'm not being serious enough about it. Because you could say, well, it starts with the picture, and then you end up getting entire movies made of AI. And I know there's an AI actress now, which is crazy. That's too much there. But this one picture, I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's not enough to hate a movie over, I would say. If it's even AI, I don't even think that's confirmed. But I'll move on from this whole AI thing. So overall, I enjoyed this segment a lot. Again, it's very eerie, but there was one thing I didn't really care for it, and that was the whole milk twist. The whole twist with breastfeeding, you see like footprints of milk throughout the house, and it's kind of like, okay, where are we going with milk here? And I was hoping they were just trying to be like gross with it a little bit, which they were. But it felt very Barbarian-esque, like they saw the success of Barbarian and they're like, oh, how do we get breastfeeding into this? That's what it kind of like struck me as. And the mommy, which is what they call her, I believe she had like 6 nipples. Again, it just felt like they were tying it into the Barbarian monster. Which I enjoyed the movie Barbarian, but even when it got to the twist where like there's that gigantic troll thing and like the whole milk and all that, I was kind of like, it was a fun movie. I enjoyed watching it, but I didn't really care for the twist with the whole like, thing in the breastfeeding, and like, I don't know, like I get it makes people uncomfortable, that's its objective. But with this segment in particular, I think if they would have played it a lot more straight, and done away with the milk, there's that meme, he needs more milk. This segment, it needs less milk. I would just prefer it without the whole milk aspect, because I think it did a very good job of being eerie, and it didn't need the milk grossness. It doesn't ruin the segment for me, but I just wish we didn't have it. I felt like it would have been better without it. That's it. That's my little critique for this segment. So yeah, that's the first segment there. Coochie Coochie Coo. The next segment. Now I'm going to butcher the name of this. Ut Supra Sic Infra. Which I should know how to say because they said it a bunch of times in this segment. But that was my best attempt there. So forgive me if I butchered it. But this one kind of has a cool setup. We get this guy named Enric, and we kind of get 2 perspectives. One, Enric is at a party. They're going to go to this supposedly cool, mysterious place. And then it goes to present day, and Enric is with like the FBI or police force. And, we're getting all these details on how all of his friends were murdered, and they're at the police station. They're like, tell us what happened. And he was like, it was me. And they're like, well, that's not possible. Like with our research, like this just isn't adding up, Enric. What do you mean it was you? And he's like, I can't remember. And they're like, well, we're going to have to go back to the place where they were all murdered, and you can explain to us how it happened, because I'm sure that's a great idea. I really liked in the beginning when they were bouncing back and forth, because Enric, you see his 2 sides of his character. When he's with his friends at the party, he seems like kind of the class clown type guy. He reminded me of a little bit of like Jim Carrey. And then when you see him with the police, he's very just disturbed and very odd. So it was cool seeing the 2 sides of the coin between the past and the present. When we're at the party, one thing, because there's a girl who's explaining everything, and she's like, oh, a boy showed me this mysterious room. And they're like, okay, cool. And like all the friends are complaining, like, we should have just stayed at the party. And eventually they get to this mysterious room, and this mysterious room is just like a big round room with like writing on the walls. And if this were me at the party, I'd be like, are you kidding me? Like, this is where you wanted to lead us. But all the friends, like, they're looking around, they're like, whoa, yeah, this is crazy. Thank you for taking me here. And they're acting like just super jazzed about it. And I was watching this with a friend. I'm like, would you think that room's that cool? I don't think it's that cool. And my friend agreed with me. I was being a little negative Nancy, but eventually we get to the spooky stuff to where when Enric says the magic phrase, which is ut supra sic infra, again, I probably butchered it, he read it 3 times out loud at the party, which it translates to as above, so below. And a phone appears in the middle of the room, and it starts ringing. And that's pretty cool. And it does the same thing with the police, too, because, again, this police force, or FBI, they're like, oh, Enric, say it again, man. Like, remember when you went into a violent state and killed everyone? Say these 3 words again. At the party, he takes the call, and he starts to vibrate violently, and he looks unwell, and then it cuts away, and we go back to the police force to where the phone appears, just like he said. And man, like, these cops, like, they're like, there's no way there's a phone there. Like, there had to be a line or a bell, like, they're trying to just tell him it's not possible, even though this dude's unwell. But then the phone appears, and it's ringing, and they decide to answer it. And when they do, Enric goes into crazy mode. And this was like really, really cool. They had an effect to where Enric made the police force start to float up in the air. And of course, one of the camera people, they're floating in the air as well. And you literally see them gravitate towards the ceiling. And it does a really cool effect to where you see them being lifted up, and it's as if it's one shot. And when they finally hit the ceiling, Enric appears like on the ceiling coming through a door, as if like they flipped realities. Just like the phrase he said, as above, so below. I love that shot. That little effect, however they did it, that was great. There's a part to where Enric starts throwing up eyeballs. That's very gross and gory. And then Enric, once he has, all the police officers, he decides to pluck out their eyes. And then like the segment kind of ends. And overall, I know I kind of just talked over the entire segment. But that's just because like it was a great setup. It had a very cool effect. Everyone died except Enric, and then it ended. Like it's a fairly quick one. There's not a lot to it. It's a very tight, packed segment. And when it's done, it's done. So it was cool, had a cool effect, and then we get out of there. So that was the second segment. The next segment is a pretty big shift in tone from the first two segments. It's called Fun Size. And this is a group of friends. And at first, I thought the group of friends were very corny. They show up, they're going trick-or-treating, and like one of them's like, yeah, and we just got engaged. And I'm like, why would you tell a stranger that while you're trick-or-treating? Like, I get being friendly, but it just seemed so unneeded. And this one guy, so the guy handing out candy, he goes, what are you guys supposed to be? You're a pirate, you're a superhero, what are you three? And this one guy like trips in, he goes, oh, we're like cameraman from found footage horror films. And it felt very like heavy handed. And I was like, oh man, like I hope this segment isn't going to be bad. And then that's when he starts talking about getting engaged. And it just felt very corny. And I was like, I don't know about these characters. But then you get a little conversation between the two girls in the group, and you find out that one of the girls does not want to be engaged with that guy. And I was kind of like, okay, like I can see a little tension here. I'm interested. And then it like cuts back to that guy. And again, he's very corny, and he doesn't even use her name when he talks. He's like, hey, fiance, can you believe that you are my fiance? I am so excited. I can't wait till the day we get married. And he's going on and on and on. And by like the third or fourth time he uses the term fiance, I'm starting to laugh. Like it's just very funny and again, very corny. But they go to a bowl, and it says, please only grab one, and has all these candies that they've never even heard of. And one of them opens up a package, and man, it is like a chocolate penis. And one of the friends like eats it, like he's trying to be funny about it. It's very just ugh. But he does that. But then he goes for a second piece of candy, which the sign says to only grab one. And when he does, a hand grabs his hand, and he's like freaking out, and it pulls him into the bowl. And while this is happening, like it is funny, and then pulls in another friend, and the two girls like run away, and they're like going to call 911, and she turns, and the bowl's flying at her, and the bowl consumes her to where they are all now stuck into the bowl. This sends them to like a candy dungeon. And man, this was fun. This was fun. It was funny. The villain is like literally like a cartoonish type guy, and he keeps going, fun size. And he just like appears out of nowhere. They turn one of the guys into candy, and you find out the chocolate penis was actually a chocolate penis, because it is body parts being turned into candy. And they're trying to figure out like how to get out and everything. And just the best part is the guy continuously just badgering the girl, saying, oh, fiance, like I hope we make it out and have our dream wedding. And he says at one point, like, this will be a great story to tell our kids someday. And eventually she tells him, like, as he's about to die, he's like, wait, we can technically get married. And he's like, do you take me as your husband? And she's like, I do not. And then he ends up dying. It's a very, very funny segment. And it switches up the tone, which I think you kind of need that in a VHS segment. The worst thing you could do, though, is try to make a funny segment and it not be funny, or if you go too weird with it. But I found this one was really effective. Like, I felt kind of re-energized. I was ready for the next thing. And boy, oh boy, the next segment. Like, it was definitely different than this one. The next segment is called Kid Print. And this is a heavy, dark segment. This is an immediate switch up from Fun Size. Like Fun Size, you got the cartoon villain where when they chop off his hand, it sprays out Skittles. It's very, very funny. This one, it is dark, grimy. There's kid violence in it. And yeah, while I was watching it, like, you need dark segments, and just like I was like, switching it up to funny, like that's really effective in VHS. But you also kind of need like some dark subject matter to you need the heavy hitter in a VHS movie as well. And this is like one of the heaviest ones I think there is. Like I preach up and down about Safe Haven from VHS 2. I absolutely love that one. I find that a very heavy one. It's very gory. And this one, like it's probably heavier than that. It feels more grounded. And, like it's about a serial killer who's like abducting these kids. And there's one guy, he owns a shop to where he like films kids so that you can identify them if they go missing. Seems like a very stand-up guy. Now he does seem a bit odd in the beginning, and I thought the twist was going to be that he was the murderer. I was like, this guy, he's far too nice, and he's like going to like these little Halloween trick-or-treat meetings, and he's like filming all these kids, and he's like, say trick-or-treat. And like some people are like freaked out because like kids are disappearing, and he's like, oh, come on now. Like, we got to enjoy the Halloween spirit. And I'm like, this guy, there's no way he's good. But he was a good dude. And he ends up going to a shop, and it turns out to be like one of like his IT guys. Like that was the big murderer. And he's like a big husky dude. But man, you see people's like skin being cut off. You hear him screaming. You hear him struggling to breathe. This was a dark, dark segment. And this is one, if like you are squeamish about gore, or like if like any type of torture type movies like really get to you, this will be one that is probably too much for you, just to be honest, because like it is heavy. But I think it's effective. Like when you're looking at VHS Halloween as a whole, we got all these fun segments, but you need some segments to kind of switch it up. And we already had our funny one, so this is like our very dark toned one. So yeah, like it's really effective in that way. Now, as effective as Kid Print was, you probably don't want to end your VHS movie on that segment. So, they ended the movie with Home Haunt. And that is the last segment of this movie. And I love the premise. I really do. It's, a guy and his wife, taking their kid. They're creating like a little home haunt. And in the beginning, you get his son, who's very, very young, very into the haunt. He loves to be Igor, and the dad is just super into it. And then it cuts to present day, and the kid's now older, and the kid wants nothing to do with it. There's kids at school making fun of him for it. And, the kid's just telling his dad straight up, like, listen, I don't want to do it. I'm getting made fun of. Like, don't include me this year. I don't want to do it. And the dad's just kind of like, come on, man. Like, think about the good times. I think every father can kind of relate to this fear that, like their son's going to get older and want nothing to do with them. They're not cool anymore. Like I got a young son, and like that's kind of almost a fear of mine. So like while this is like playing out, I'm like, man, this poor dad, like he just wants to have a cool haunted house, and he wants his son to love it too, just like he does, but the son does not love it at all. So the dad's trying to amp up his home haunt, try to make it a little less cheesy. He says several times, let's make it actually scary this year. And you'd be like, man, why don't you just ditch the Frankenstein theme? Because he has like this kind of corny hair that he wears, trying to be like Frankenstein. And it's like, dude, quit making your kid be Igor. Like, pick something a little more scarier themed, and maybe the kids at school will quit calling him Igor. Change up your theme, dude. But he doesn't. He's like, oh, how can I make this scarier? And he finds like this little record and he plays it, opening night of the home haunt, and the haunt comes to life. Literally all the monsters and stuff. And again, the gore is pretty heavy in this one, but this is more fun. This is not like kid print to where you're kind of like, oh no. Like this one, like you're kind of just laughing as people are dying left and right. And the family's like trying to like fight their way out. It's pretty cool. The ghosts come to life. There's one like ghost sheet. It goes over someone's head and you see blood spraying out of like the ghost eyes and the mouth. Vampires come to life and they're like devouring kids. There's a torture chamber that the dad wanted to add. And of course the torture chamber works, and there's a guy in there who's torturing everyone, like splits a person's head open pretty cleanly. And the dad, he's trying his best. He's like, we're gonna fight our way out of here. But it's just like too much. Like there's witches. And eventually like this all ends with the son who has the camera. I believe the witch picks him up and kills him. So the camera is with the witch on the broom. And you get that point of view of the witch flying through the streets on Halloween night. What a perfect way to end, this movie that's Halloween themed, where you get the point of view of a witch flying through the streets on Halloween, like literally picking people up, cutting off their heads, and impaling another kid. And then eventually the video camera falls and it lands right where the haunt is. And there's like a big gigantic like goblin head to where you walk into the haunt, and that starts to come to life, and that was really cool too. The effects were great, but this was a nice fun segment to end the movie on. So yeah, overall, this movie's a lot of fun. The Halloween vibes are heavy. And I love the Halloween atmosphere. You gotta have that, especially if it's a Halloween themed movie. But I mean, these VHS movies, like you gotta have a nice collection with different tones, different vibes, and this one definitely fit. Where does it rank amongst all the movies? I literally just did a VHS ranking, and then they come out with another one. So I don't want to do another VHS ranking video, right away. I've heard that there's going to be a lot more coming out, like yearly. And maybe if they make like a couple more, when we get further down the road, maybe I can do a re-ranking, and that could be fun, because I do love this franchise. There's only 2 movies I didn't like as a whole, and that was VHS Viral and VHS 99. All the rest, I completely love them, and I love all the segments. And this one's no different. This one's a lot of fun too. So this is my review of VHS Halloween. If you're listening, thank you so much. And if you could, give this video a like to get it out to other people. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that so you know when the next videos come out. And again, thank you so much for listening. And until next time, guys.